All right, welcome to Saturday, March 26th. Sure good to see you today. Today's reading will be 1 Samuel, chapters 1 through 3. We'll actually do a little bit of an introduction. But the first thing we have to talk about is that today is Pastor Chris's birthday. And it was a great day in our church history and in our lives to knock on their door on Bluebell. Holy cow, what was that, 17 some odd years ago? Just a great man. There's not a man I respect more than Chris Rhoades. Hope he has a great birthday. Matter of fact, he's going soul winning on his birthday. Watch that. Happy birthday to him. All right, so the introduction here, there's a whole heap to talk about when it comes to 1 Samuel, because what we're doing, 1 and 2 Samuel, and then 1 and 2 Kings, is like a whole chronological account all the way from the birth of Samuel to the carrying away the Babylonian captivity. So this is going to cover a lot of time. It's going to be important. It's going to be, understanding these books helps us understand the Bible. It helps us understand the transition in the New Testament. There is so much here. I'll scoot over a bit and we'll go ahead and put a graphic here that shows how the books fit together in the Old Testament. You see when we get to 2 Kings there, man. 2 Kings is a busy book. But of course there's going to be a lot of kings. There's going to be a lot of failure. God sends, prophets one after another during that time trying to warn them. But they don't listen. Just like they don't listen here in 1 Samuel. So 1 Samuel is from the birth of Samuel to the death of Saul. And 2 Samuel then is mostly about David. 1 Samuel will be mostly about Samuel. Now, we didn't let the death of Moses stop us from believing that he wrote the last chapter of Deuteronomy. However, we're not going to say the same thing here when it comes to 1 and 2 Samuel. Samuel does die, and another book of the Bible points out to other authors of these books. Now remember, 1 and 2 Samuel are, in the originals, one book, and then 1 and 2 Kings is another. But 1 Chronicles chapter 29 and verse 29 says this: Now the acts of David the king, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of Samuel the seer, and the book of Nathan the prophet, and in the book of Gad the seer. So what people tend to believe is that Samuel, Gad, and Nathan wrote all these. There's probably going to have to be some people later on that we don't know. The end of this book hints at the kings of Judah, and so by doing that, places the writing a little bit later. Once you start getting over there, and might put a later date on it. A lot of key verses in here, particularly the ones about the kingdom being taken away from Saul. One of the things I want to figure out through this, if God knew that he was going to reject Saul, why did he pick him in the first place? But the key word here is transition. We are going from Moses, the leader, Joshua, the leader, to the judges, Samuel being somewhat the last judge, a seer, the first prophet, and now we're going to transition into king. So we're going to go from corrupt judges to now corrupt kings. Going to be fun. The key event here would be Israel's rejection of God as their leader and the installation of a king. We talked about that last night, Wednesday night Bible study. Actually, I guess that was 2 nights ago. Interesting side note, Samuel's one of the only guys in Scripture besides Jesus, I don't know of any other major characters where no sin is ever listed. This book has the famous story of David and Goliath. And then Christ is portrayed in this book as Samuel, the prophet, the priest, and the judge. Maybe even a little bit of David. Born in Bethlehem, works as a shepherd, ends up as king. Now you're going to find conflicting dates of when this was written, as I mentioned earlier. It generally gets a date of about 1015 BC, but 1 Samuel 27 verse 6 talks about kings of Judah, so it has to be later than that too. There's going to be some great truths, study into human psyche all the way throughout this book. Saul is an interesting guy. When he sins, he blames everyone else. If we would just own up to our own mistakes, our own sins, that's half the battle right there. Let's also do an outline of the book for you right here. I will pause as you look at it. There are 31 chapters, 810 verses, 25,061 words. And again, didn't count. Trusted somebody else. Now, there's going to be some humor tomorrow, but I want to mention it today. Why don't you maybe look up in the Bible when we get to 1 Samuel chapter 6 what a golden emerald is. All right, getting into the stories. Here we have Elkanah. We have 2 wives. I don't know why anybody thinks that's going to work out well. You have one provoking the other. God's way that he wants it is one man, one woman. But you read through this, and you're like, way to go, Eli. Make fun of the woman who's praying and you're the priest, right? There's a sermon I've preached a couple times in our church called Why Samuel Turned Out. And here you find one of the reasons is that his mother prayed. And then we get here to chapter 2. We have, the birth of Samuel. Oh, wait, they didn't give Samuel a chance to grow up and make his own choices. His parents should have waited until he was an adult to figure this whole thing out. Do we really believe the Bible? So then we find the sons of Eli. You want to, run a Houston megachurch, you can just stuff cash in your walls in your bathroom, nobody even cares. But there's too many lost people in leadership. We as churches try to keep too many lost people in. By the way, just because somebody's a leader in a church or a religious organization doesn't mean we just all of a sudden just trust them completely. We still need to be careful. See, Eli knew that isn't the biggest problem. As we're going to get in the next chapter, it's that Eli didn't restrain him or do anything about it. Now, chapter 3, we find that the fire goes out and God calls Samuel. Pretty straightforward little thing here, and a little bit of an awkward moment, and a little bit of an awkward moment towards the end when Eli makes Samuel tell him what God said to him, and it's not good for Eli. All right, I have good news for you. You are now 20% of the way through the Bible today. Got there today. You have read 238 of 1,189 chapters. You are a fifth of the way through. Good job. Let's keep it up. I'll see you here tomorrow.